What would you do in my situation? 32F 45 meters, open relationship. I don't know if this will help at all, but I really need a fresh perspective. Names are obviously changed. Imagine. Anna and Thomas are married, with 2 children. Thomas falls in love with Claire and ends up opening his marriage to be with Anna and Claire simultaneously. Anna and Claire get along fine, but never become friends due to personality differences. Claire spends every weekend with them, but spends the weeks in her own apartment. Thomas keeps telling Claire that he loves her, but he has to stay married with Anna because of the kids. He doesn't want to put them through divorce. This goes on for years. Claire feels lonely during the week and wants to go out and date people. Thomas is not okay with that though, says he'd be too jealous. Claire points out that it's not really fair, because he has his family while she only has half of him on the weekends. Thomas points out that it's not comparable. Him being in a joyless marriage for 20 years vs Claire dating and falling in love with new people. He feels he'd be at a disadvantage. Claire accepts this, and it goes on for several more years, in which she starts noticing or realizing that Thomas has no intention of ever moving out, regardless of whether the kids are still living in the house or not. Apparently, he values loyalty above everything else. The problem is that Claire has never loved anyone that much before, and leaving would be the hardest thing she'd ever do. I'm Claire, obviously, and what's driving me crazy is that Thomas keeps saying that this arrangement is fair and his male friends agree with him. He is always there for me and furnish my entire apartment, etc. But I feel like I'm being used nonetheless. Any thoughts?
Claire needs to wake the fork up.
How to get past my 20 meters BF cheating. I 21F can already see the leave him comments. I'll start off by saying I have BPD. So, I get very attached, which makes it hard to leave. One of my biggest problems is that I try to see the good over the bad. I'm a 21F who's been with my 20 meters BF for almost 4 years. This is now his 4th or 5th time cheating. Yes, I know. It's bad. Now, when I say he cheated, he didn't sleep with anyone else, didn't kiss anyone else. It's all online. That's how it's been every time. This is the 2nd time he's made a second Snapchat account to cheat on me, adding random girls who aren't even pretty or his age just to get off. I would consider myself pretty attractive. I'm 20F, 120 pounds. I'm not ugly, you know? He goes on Reddit and joins fetish groups and posts for people to add him on his fake Snap account and post pictures of himself. I won't get into his fetishes, but they are very different, and I do them for him. I do a lot for him. Very abnormal, dirty things. I just don't get why, if I do it all, why he needs to keep cheating over and over. He just doesn't stop. When he gets caught, he stops for a few months, but then starts up again, and I'm over here, looking like a fool, thinking it's really done when it's not. The issue is I love him to death. He is a good person deep down, I know he is. When we met, he was the sweetest boy. I wouldn't even think of him hurting a fly. But he's changed. I don't feel a spark anymore, given the cheating. I don't feel much, but I know I'm in love and don't want to lose him. I just don't know how to get past this. Does anyone have any advice? Is this something I can even get past? Have to add we do live together, which also makes it harder to leave. Addition, after reading all of the comments regarding no punishment ever being given, I feel that it is important to add that after the first time, I had him delete TikTok, Instagram and Reddit, and took away private browsing for about a year. Once I thought I could trust him again, I gave it all back, one at a time, slowly, except Reddit he downloaded and deleted behind my back. I understand now that it's not going to stop it, as he will just do it anyways, behind my back. But please don't assume I just let it slide, because even though you're right, I haven't left. I don't just do nothing about it.
You can predict the leave him comments because you know, deep down, that it's what you have to do. You could look at it like I have BPD, so I'm very attached to him, so I need to stay with him. Or you could look at it like I have BPD, so I really need to be with someone who treats me right and can offer stability. Having a mental health condition isn't a good reason or excuse to stay in a bad relationship. It's all the more reason to be in a healthy, nurturing, safe relationship. From my limited understanding, one of the traits of BPD is intense, difficult emotions. So being with someone who's a serial cheater, who keeps toying with your emotions and hurting you, is going to do nothing but serious damage. I have BPD and I understand the abandonment issues. You'll never leave because everyone leaves me, so why get rid of the one person who hasn't? No one else will love me and stay. Girl, you're wrong. You will find better. Someone who will stand solid by your side and never sway. Someone worthy of you. This guy knows you won't leave. That's why this is the 5th time. He knows you're so scared of abandonment and rejection that he's using it to his advantage, and he won't stop because of it. Prove him wrong. Leave. If you're not already, I highly recommend therapy. You're so young. BPD is hell to live with. Don't make it harder by staying with a person who doesn't care about you. You're in love with the idea of him. You say deep down he's a good person. He's not. He's a serial cheater. That's just who he is. and he has proven it to you over and over again. It's not going to change, so either accept him for who he is and how he treats you, or move on and find someone who actually is a good person.
My husband 33M wants to spend Thanksgiving without me, 29F, and our kids. How do I get him to understand I'm upset? My husband 33M and I 29F were discussing going out of state to visit his sister for Thanksgiving. I was all for it, but quickly realized that because I'm a full-time college student, I won't be able to go as long as he wants. I offered to fly up while he drives there a couple days in advance and meet up, and then we drive down together. The conversation was left still in the wind. Then, about 2-3 weeks ago, he mentioned staying to save money, and I said okay. Today, his mother asked him about Thanksgiving, and he said he was still going with his older kids. He has 2 kids from a previous marriage. I didn't say anything then, but when we got home, we got into a big argument over it. He said he didn't tell me that he wasn't going to go. I asked him about taking all the kids, and he flat out said he didn't want to drive 10 hours with 4 kids, especially our youngest 2 and 3. I suggested he take one and I fly with the other, which he also shot down because he'll be driving through the day. His oldest is teenage girl, so worst case she could help out, and I suggested he drive partially through the night so they stay mostly asleep, and he still said no. I feel very upset that he is okay with us spending Thanksgiving separately when there's clear options for us to be together. It feels like he doesn't want me to go. He told me I'm making this about myself and that he wants to go because his sister is moving to Hawaii in a couple months and he won't be able to see her for a very long time. I told him that I understood that, but I still don't understand why he can't adjust slightly so we can go as a family, and that his sister would want to see the babies as well. Then he tells me that she'll see them when she comes to visit in February, which makes me very mad because he was painting this picture as though this'll be the last time he sees her, except that he'll see her again later. He's basically telling me that there's no other way for us to be there together when that's clearly not true. We could have even gone after Thanksgiving when I wrap up my finals, but he won't hear that. I just can't comprehend his side because I would never want to spend a holiday without him or our kids, and he's so easily deciding to do just that. Edit. Just to bring light to the older sister helping out, the other child could help. I'm not trying to say that she should take full responsibility of either of our babies at all, and I fear people on here are assuming that, but that's because of how I wrote it. Trust me, I'm the oldest girl of my siblings, and I loathe having to feel like a second mom when I was younger. I don't even let her babysit or change diapers because of my own trauma. I meant more to just keep baby entertained for a couple minutes if she happens to get fussy while he's driving. I really don't want people to think she's being used as some backup parent. That's never been the case. Both my stepkids love playing with the babies, so Elle was thinking more of just playing with them in the car, not like babysitting. I would prefer greatly to actually go on the road trip and not fly, for the record. When we discussed everything, I was just coming up with multiple possible solutions. OP comment. I am the default parent. He isn't with them alone often. If I go out anywhere that isn't school, I usually have them with me. If I have to leave by myself for a couple hours, he usually goes to his mother's house where she basically watches them for him while he watches TV or scrolls on his phone. He does have an annoying habit of when he is with them for a couple hours alone, he feels he deserves a break afterwards every time, yet I rarely get one.
Sounds like he's cheating either physically or with someone he's chatting up online. Any chance he has an old flame near where the sister lives? Regardless, he's disrespecting you, making it clear he doesn't want to be with you and the kids. Time to lawyer up. Screw this guy. He's a jerk.
Is that what happened in his previous marriage?
I bet it is. OP, if a man can up and leave his previous wife and children, he'll do it to you without a backward glance.
That was my gut feeling as well. Men who leave their female partners to do all of the childcare are trash. Op unfortunately brought another woman's discarded trash into her home, and he's stinking up her life now. Trash goes out on the curb.
Pack your shit and leave while he's there. I cannot understand why someone would want to stay with a partner that likes them so little to ditch them during a major holiday.
Hire movers.
Using his credit card.
It is on purpose. He doesn't want you to go. And he doesn't care if you're stuck at home alone for Thanksgiving with 2 toddlers, or that you're in the middle of finals. He doesn't care to be a husband and actual parent, because teenagers are easy in situations like this. He understands why you're upset. He simply does not care.
Yes, more women need to hear and actually accept that. He understands, he simply doesn't care.
My 26M wife, 25F, told me that she no longer wants kids because I was diagnosed with autism. How do I move forward? Me and my wife Cora have been together for over 5 years and married for 3. Both Cora and I always dreamed of having a large family. We both love each other dearly and I truly thought nothing could come between us. Now I feel like my whole world is falling apart. I've always struggled a bit with my mental health. I always struggled with socializing and keeping up in school when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot for being weird and not as smart as the other kids or my siblings. I never got therapy because my folks believed that therapy was just for women and men who were too weak to hack it out on their own. I finally decided to make the jump and go see a therapist. Recently, I was officially diagnosed with autism. I had a huge mix of emotions. I was shocked, relieved, and insecure. I finally had some answers for why I felt so different growing up, but I also felt scared because I didn't want people to look at or treat me differently. Shortly after I told Cora about my diagnosis, things between us started to feel off. She was very supportive and gave me comfort, but I could tell something was wrong. She wasn't nearly as talkative. I would regularly catch her deep in thought, and she seemed to grow more distant as the days went on. The biggest change I noticed was that Cora almost completely stopped talking about babies. She went from constantly sending me baby-related content from TikTok to not even wanting to talk about the subject at all. After 2 weeks of this, I finally decided to confront her. She kept saying that she didn't want to talk about it and she was fine. I told her she's not fine, I'm starting to fear the worst and we're gonna talk about this now. After prying at her for several minutes, she finally confessed that she doesn't think we should have children anymore. My heart sunk. She started talking a mile a minute and kept reassuring that we can still adopt. She said that she grew up with a sibling who had special needs and it made her childhood miserable. She said that she can't bring herself to have a child with me, now knowing the chances of producing a child with special needs are much higher. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was filling with pain and rage. What she said next completely pushed me over the edge. She told me, "I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I love you so much. Believe me. If I had known you were autistic, I never would have brought up having kids." I lost it. I screamed at her. "If I had known you were such a heartless piece of trash, I never would have married you." She just looked at me with a blank stare and I stormed out before she could respond. I feel so broken. In that moment it felt like all the years of abuse and ridicule were replaying back in my mind. We haven't spoken to each other for a couple days. I feel awful for yelling, but I feel so hurt. I just don't know what to do.
You need to talk to your therapist about why you had this outburst rather than being calm about working through your wife's valid concerns. And I would honestly say that there are moments in relationships you can't come back from. Words that can't be unsaid. These are likely some of those words. Your wife loved you enough to give up on her dreams of her own children. You treated her like an incubator. You treated her like she isn't worth even being polite to without providing you with babies. This fear was likely something that could be worked through. I'm not so certain that your words are.
I'd like to add that this was a trauma response from Ob. He said a lot of really cruel things that likely hurt his wife, horribly triggering her own trauma further. Outbursts like the one he just had was likely the exact lived experience she had with special needs children, which probably reinforced her dislike for having children with Ob. Children are a really hard topic, and women will always bear the brunt of the load when it comes to children. Her feelings are valid, yours are too, but your words were wildly out of line and hurtful. Honestly, this is something to talk to your therapist about. Reddit is not going to give you good guidance here. Maybe some genetics counseling for the two of you would be a good idea too. They can explain in depth the exact risks associated with your diagnosis, Ray, having children. In case it isn't obvious to you, I will point out that this appears to be a trauma response from your wife. If she has not been through therapy herself, it would be good for her to do so.
I'm not so sure it's just a trauma response from the wife. Special needs kids are tough. Autism is genetically linked, and while most cases that we see and hear about are mild, there are also many cases where the child is high needs. Autism isn't something that can be screened for. It's also not predictable how drastic it will be. It seems pretty logical. The wife still thinks adoption is a good choice, so it's not like she gave up on having kids.
Seconding this, I'm ADHD, diagnosed as a kid, and autistic, later diagnosed, married to an autistic, also late diagnosis, and my firm stance is if you aren't prepared for a disabled or neurodivergent kid, then you need to be not having any kids. No kid deserves a parent like that. And I had a difficult childhood where I was unofficially shuttled from home to home, and adopting is absolutely not the option to take to avoid a high-risk kid. First, because you have no way of knowing the likelihood of neurodivergence, medical needs, chronic illness or learning disabilities, etc. Because trauma and adoption brings its own issues. and because any kid always comes with the possibilities of developed issues. If you aren't prepared for anything a child can bring, then you shouldn't have kids, period.
Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on these relationship advice stories? Share in the comments. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Ask Reddit videos to do your makeup too.